If you want to meet the new president and CEO of the Burroughs and Chapin Company, you can't knock on his door, but you can meet him on this morning's Carolina People. Catch him coming up next. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Coastal Grand Mall, the Grand Strand's premier shopping destination. We're focused on the Burroughs and Chapin Company, and we're visiting with its new President and Chief Executive Officer, Jim Rosenberg. Good morning, Jim.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here.
If I wasn't slumped back in this lazy boy chair, I'd be reaching over to shake your hand. But it's early on a Thursday morning. They were kind enough to open up the doors to let us in before they open up.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Exciting to get you in, and of course you've been in town now, what, 2-3 months?
I've been here about 75 days and nights.
Hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. You feeling good? The area's got a lot to offer.
God, I love it. It's one of those things where it's kind of an overworn phrase, but it's exceeded my expectations. It really has.
Already in 75 days?
Already.
Wow. That's what you came here from.
Well, I had finished an assignment in Germany.
Right.
A very difficult assignment, very 24/7 type of assignment, and I was tired. I moved back to my home in Atlanta, was my original home. And I was helping a gentleman whose company had gotten away from him, and I was helping him get it straightened out. And I was thinking, well, gosh, where do I want to live? I realized right away I don't like Atlanta anymore. It's not the place I was born and raised in.
Really?
And I started thinking, where do I want to live? And Myrtle Beach started entering my mind because I had some great times here when I went to college and graduate school and stuff. And I get a call 2 weeks later from a recruiter. We have an opportunity in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
You are kidding?
Yes, it was that fateful a thing.
That divine.
And I said yes, and they described the company. I came down and interviewed, and it just went great. And so we did it.
That's fantastic.
And it's just been better than I thought it really had.
So you grew up in Atlanta?
I grew up in Atlanta. Went to school, though, to college and graduate school in South Carolina.
I saw that. Presbyterian College, and then later to the University of South Carolina for business. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Of course, to think about ties to the Palmetto State and knowing that your experiences here were in other parts of the state, what was it about Myrtle Beach that had you thinking that way?
I wanted to be in a beach area, I realized, but I didn't want to go to Florida. I think Florida's run its course, and it just didn't appeal to me.
Right.
And I had so many great memories of Myrtle Beach. I even worked here one summer.
Is that right?
And
not for the Burroughs and Chapin.
No, it's a moving company. But I realized that how it was growing. It's so much than just one city. If you start down at Georgetown and work your way up north, there's just so much to do and see and happening here. And it was a place that at my age, it was just a great place to spend the rest of my life.
Sure.
And then you combine it with this job, and when I researched the job with Burroughs and Chapin, I realized that I could take 30 years of skills that I've learned and apply it all at Burroughs and Chapin. Mm-hmm. And the final piece was the ownership of Burroughs and Chapin. Family-owned company, stable ownership. In today's world where companies change hands all the time, this is an ideal situation. I'll tell you one of the things I did in September talking about ownership.
Yeah.
I went around and met our shareholders. We have 220 shareholders in Burroughs and Chapin.
Is that right?
Family members of the Burroughs family and the Chapin family.
Right.
And when you think that for over 100 years, these two families have stayed together and own this company together is an amazing story.
That is.
And they still get along fantastic.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, it's Thursday at 7 a.m., but you're
really
getting along that well. That's fantastic. Yeah.
It stunned me.
Yeah.
And these meetings I held with the shareholders, they were like in living rooms, 8 to 12 shareholders in each one. So it was a chance to really hear them firsthand and talk to them.
I wonder if that's, not to take anything away from your predecessors on down the line, but I wonder if that's something that had been done before. I mean, that's a great idea.
I think they've always tried to have meetings with the shareholders.
Sure.
But it really opens your eyes to how great it is.
Are most of the folks from Horry in Georgetown County?
I don't know the percentage, but our meetings were as far north of Chicago, and then Columbia, Raleigh, Spartanburg, Charleston. So I'd say probably 50% of them are not in Horry County.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. Earlier this week, on Monday, we kicked off the week with Kathleen Burroughs and Patty Gresco, Pumping Up Taste of the Town, which was held on Tuesday night at the Convention Center. Of course, Kathleen and Edward Burroughs, deep probably in some of those early sessions, the meetings you had. And she's such a proponent, of course, as one of the best storytellers for the area and supporters of what all y'all do. And, of course, we're in one of the properties you have a joint agreement with, I guess, with CBL. A magnificent facility here. Do you come out here often? I guess in 75 days you probably haven't had too much time.
I do, but the other thing, I actually took a tour of all of our properties recently. You know, we have 30,000 acres in Horry County.
Oh, come on.
And when you drive around and you see all this, you go, it sends chills down your spine. Really, it's just, it's everywhere. And we have another 10,000 outside of the county. So we're very land rich.
I did not know that. I thought the holidays or International Paper or otherwise were the big players in land holding, but 30,000 in Horry alone. My Lord, Jim, that's fascinating.
It's everywhere.
Did you ever imagine attending Presbyterian in the early 70s that you would, what was it you thought when you were attending college and then later graduate school that you would get into over the last 30 years? You
know, people have asked me, you know, how do you get to be a president and CEO of a big company?
Great question. I should have thrown that out.
And I never had aspirations. I've even asked my mother and father, you know, did it show? Did anything particular happen? No. I mean, I always worked hard, but I never had big ambitions. But I'm almost the tortoise of the tortoise and the hare. I just kind of kept plugging along. I would volunteer for difficult assignments. I was never the best-looking guy or the smartest guy or the most dynamic person, but I was just always there. And people found that they could depend on me, and I was a great communicator, and I never let anybody down, and it just kept growing.
You think those are some of the keys that it takes for, I guess, for most folks to really get to the top?
And be disciplined. You have to really be disciplined. About almost everything you do, really.
I saw in the lineup of a lot of the pieces, experiences you've had in the last 30 years, it was oftentimes president and chief operating officer to have had that real on the street, making sure you interact with folks and maintain. I see even now, of course, there's that same idea, but bringing other folks in and letting them really make it happen.
You're so dependent on people, and I learned early on that you have to communicate with everybody. And when I walk through the door of our offices, or I walk through the doors to see one of our facilities or meet with customers, I know I've got to be on. I can't be in a bad mood. I can't have a bad day. You got to be up. And I think as long as you're up, you'll create that upness around other people.
Sure. What's a typical day like? Let's say you weren't sitting here at 7 a.m. on a Thursday at Coastal Grand Mall. Can you give a typical day, let's say earlier this week, maybe Monday or Tuesday? What's a typical day for you? Are you up early? Are you up
I'm
late?
an early person. I used to work out in the mornings. I now work out at night.
Is that right?
That's one part of my life I've switched. But I try to work out every day. That's kind of my drug of release. But I'll get to the office about 7:30, and then it's just a series of meetings. But throughout the day, I always try to walk around and see people and talk to people. One of the things I do when I take over a company is I hold lunches. And I probably do that about 3 or 4 days a week with employees. I take 6 different employees every day to lunch. And I've found in a group of 6, over an hour and a half lunch, I can get to know them pretty well. So I've done this with about 190 employees now.
Oh, come on.
At Burroughs and Chapin.
Already?
Wow. And it's just a great way to meet the people and talk to them and, you know, what can I do to make your job better and what do I need to do? And it's a great experience.
That's fantastic.
And I'm a casual guy. You can see the way I dress. This is the way I dress every day. This is the way I dress every day.
I wish I could take this jacket off. It's promoting our show sponsor.
We even instituted you can wear shorts on Fridays. And I said, okay, we live at the beach. We work at the beach. Let's enjoy it.
Right.
And I think that opens up communication lines. What you can't be is an island if you're a CEO. You can't sit in the office and think you know everything and send out orders and do all that. I got to know what's going on.
That's fantastic. I've got to read this quote that Tom O'Dare picked up from you. It ran in the Herald on August 9th. Quote, my door is not just always open. I even removed it at one of the companies I ran, and when my executives did not take the hint, I had theirs removed as well. That's a pretty bold statement, and obviously highlighting it's an open door policy to the extreme.
That was, I've done 2 stints in Europe. Worked in Europe at the beginning of my career and this recently towards the end of my career. This happened at the recent towards the end of my career.
In Europe.
In Europe.
Yeah.
And I tell you, working internationally was real big for my growth too, and I would recommend that to anybody out there who's really has a lot of aspirations.
Right.
Work in Europe sometime. Not only do you learn a different skill set, but you learn to love America so much more when you live and work in a foreign country.
Right.
I just love this country. But this is a job in Germany, and the Germans are kind of strict, by the book people.
Right.
And when I took over this company, every door was closed. Everyone worked behind closed doors. I said, we just can't get where we need to go being that way.
Right.
So I made the gesture of taking my door off. You can always come into my office. Well, they were coming into my office, but they still weren't opening their office. I said, no, this has to be everybody. So we just took them off. And it worked great.
Did it?
Yeah, it really did. It was so refreshing.
We had a guest on the show, someone you may know or gotten to know, Larry Biddle, about 3 weeks ago, and we talked about teaching an old dog new tricks, which is really tends to be a real difficult thing for folks who are later in their careers, have been doing the same thing forever, to think that could have worked well when you remove some executive doors. I can't even fathom that.
I've found that every place I've gone, you can teach them that way. And Larry Bill's on our board, and he's a great guy. He's always got some good sayings I like to use. But that is so true, and I will always do that.
You really can teach an old dog.
You can, absolutely.
That's fantastic.
But you have to reinforce it every day. You can't just, let's say, hold a course.
Right.
Let them leave that course and think they're going to keep it. They won't. They'll lose it. Not unless you're there reinforcing it every day. He
drove home this point, Jim, during that interview about you can't just say, Jim, great job. Great job today. Or, Jim, great job. You really made it happen. It is going that extra mile and say, Jim, thank you for answering the phone properly and wrapping up a phone call properly and signing off your emails. I mean, just going there to really highlight particular things that folks do.
The first thing, Greg, when I get to the office every morning is I send emails to everybody who has a birthday that day. Personal email from me, happy birthday.
Right.
And I know I get in before everybody else, so they'll get to their computer and they've immediately got a happy birthday from the head guy.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's a great way to start the day.
That is. How about for you, some folks that were real inspirations during your early career, that maybe this last guy you were with there in Atlanta, who have been some of the folks, whether in an esoteric sense, men and women that you've read about, or folks that you've had hands-on contact with that have really made a difference, and what are some of the reasons why?
I do read a lot. I've told people that when I move to a new city, and I have done that quite a bit, and take on a new job, there's 2 things I always do to ground myself. I join a health club, and I join the library. And so the first 2 things I did here is I went and joined the health club, and I went and joined the Chapin library.
Right.
And every week I check out new books, and it's usually one is something historical or biography in nature. Another one it'll be fiction, a crime novel maybe.
Right.
And I get inspiration from reading, especially the biographies. There's a lot of them that are junk, but most of them have something in there you can grab from somebody. And I have been blessed with some good mentors. There were several people along my career who gave me opportunities to run, let's say, departments. I started in accounting.
You started in accounting. I think I saw that at Price a while back.
And I have a CPA and all that. But then I went with some hotel chains. And I had mentors along the way who said, you can do more than accounting. I'm also going to let you run operations, or I'm going to let you run IT or the real estate group. So I was given those opportunities throughout the way. And that's the way you get to be a president of a company. You've run various other areas of a company.
Right.